What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Podcasts Suck. If you don't have one, it's a podcast all about launching, producing, and growing a podcast. We record the show live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and over on Twitter. Sorry, never calling it X. It's Twitter. We record the show live so that, well, we have a live component to the podcast, but the podcast is available on all popular podcast platforms or wherever you consume podcasts. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. If it's your first time, thanks for being here. If it's your if you're a returning guest, thanks for coming back. Today, I want to talk about the topic of perfectionism when it comes to podcasting specifically. But I want to talk about perfectionism in general because, in my opinion, and I've been wrong more times than I've been right, perfection is subjective. So what I think is perfect, you might think is absolute, complete trash, or almost perfect, or not quite perfect. The reason I want to talk about this is because I'm often in conversation with people that can't seem to get out of their own way, and it's such an easy shift if they were willing and open to exploring the options that are available for them to in fact get out of their own way. Let me give you an example. I had somebody hit me up the other day or comment on one of my posts and say, I really wanted to do such and such, and I really wanted to record the podcast episode or start the podcast, but the sound of my voice makes me crazy. The way that I sound, I think it's stupid. I don't like it. I think it's annoying. It drives me crazy. And my first response was, I want to caution you on how you talk to yourself about you. And he said, well, I'm just kidding most of the time. It's in a comedic context. And I said, well, as a comedian, I don't know that there's a lot of comedic context there. It may be more from the school of thought of insecure context. So you're not secure with yourself enough to trust yourself to say, what I think about myself has nothing to do with the people that are consuming my content. And I, too, have gone through this. My thing is pictures, okay? If I don't like, and I think this may be a common denominator for a lot of people, if I don't like the way that I show up on certain pictures, I will rip myself to shreds for a hot minute and then get back on track and realize none of that's true. I'm just making stuff up. But I asked myself, where does that come from? And it's really all rooted in something else. So that's always a call to action for me to just sit with it and be with it and ask myself, what else does this mean? If I'm not happy with what I'm seeing in a picture, where is this showing up? Did someone tell me that the way I looked in that picture was bad? No. Has someone previously told me that? Maybe. Or what's always available? Am I just making shit up again? Which is what we like to do in this human experience that we're all going through. We like to make stuff up that isn't even true, write a story, a complete narrative on something that isn't even true, and then we start to live our lives according to it. And then we take it a step further and we start to enroll other people in it as if it was actually true. So first things first, when it comes to perfectionism, let's use a podcast for example purposes. So if we know that nothing is ever going to be, quote, perfect, and that taking imperfect action has continually proved time and time again that it works, why not lean into that? Why not lean into, I'm going to start because I said that I was going to start. Hey, my first episode probably going to suck. It's the first time doing anything. But as the more reps I get in, the more episodes I get in, the better I'm going to get at this whole process. And I'm going to refine it, and I'm going to continue to step into it. When we were first born, were we run around all over the place? No, we weren't. It was a process. We were held, we were coddled, we were looked after, And then we started crawling around, and then crawling around led to walking around, stumbling around, then stumbling around led to walking and running and just being completely unstoppable. It's a process, though. So next time you're thinking about perfectionism, remember, it doesn't even exist. It literally doesn't exist. And if you think that it does, I'll argue that it's subjective. And that the way that you speak to yourself does matter. It really does. I firmly believe that the way that we speak to ourselves programs our subconscious for how we treat ourselves, how we love ourselves, how we show up for ourselves. So the next time you're berating yourself about whatever it may be, a podcast episode, life, how you showed up, how that person showed up, what this person said, focus on what you can control. A majority of us are control freaks. Control is an illusion. It doesn't even exist. The only thing that we can control as human beings, in my experience of 45 years on this planet, is how we respond and how we show up and the decisions we decide to make. And sometimes those aren't even within control, if you will. But I'm really trying to do something about the people that seem to be so far in their way that they just can't get started. My favorite thing to ask crowds and audiences when I'm speaking and through my content is who's missing out because you're not showing up. And that's exactly what I mean. I'm not talking about physically showing up at a location. I'm talking about showing up by doing the thing that you know you should be doing. By doing the thing that you know is your responsibility to share with the world because it's your gift. It's been given to you. And when we're given a gift, it's our responsibility, in my opinion, to share that gift with the world. But if you get completely jammed up in a space of I don't like the way I look, I don't like the way I sound, I couldn't talk to this person, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that. You're making all these declarations for yourself that you haven't even experienced yet. Talk about putting the cart before the horse. Why don't you lean into the experience first? Go for the imperfect action. For those of you not familiar with the term, it means just getting started and not caring about how perfect it's going to be. Just knowing that when I start doing something, it's kind of like, I don't want to work out today, but I'm going to go outside and go for a walk. That walk may have turned into a jog or a run or some push-ups or some jumping jacks or some burpees, but none of that would have taken place had you not just gotten started and said, I'm going to go take a walk and I'm going to figure it out as I go. Specifically when it comes to podcasting and content creating and building your brand and getting your message out and doing whatever it is your thing is. But it's never going to happen if you stay within the confines and really the chains of self-criticism, lack of belief in yourself, and then, of course, lack of action. Just saw the quote the other day, Woody Allen. 80% of success is just showing up. So let me ask you today, are you showing up for yourself? By the way that you're speaking to yourself? By the things that you're putting off? Because I can tell you, for a fact, someone, somewhere, is missing out because you choose to sit on the sidelines. And I'm not talking about not getting started with something, but I am talking about not getting started with something. I don't know about you, but that just doesn't settle too well with me. To know that I can physically do something, and that I've been gifted with skills and abilities and tools and resources and gifts and things to share with the world, and I choose to say I'm not going to do that, knowing that someone's missing out. We're all connected in this human experience together going through life. We have duties and responsibilities. Some of us are aware of those duties and responsibilities because we play different roles in life. And some of us are actually out there leveraging them, sharing them, and doing what we know that we're supposed to be doing. And if you're watching this right now, you're one of those people. I appreciate you. And keep up the great work. If you're watching this right now and you're triggered, I really kind of got under your skin a little bit, you, in fact, are in the right place. Because I don't want to say maybe. I just want to say you needed to hear this message today. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I just said perfectionism and podcasting, go. talked on the last episode about wanting to get started and about feeling like it. You're never going to feel like it. Do it anyway. Just like today. I came in, knocked out a YouTube video, and I said, you know what? I want to record several podcast episodes for Podcast Suck this week, and I'm going to go live, and I'm going to adjust different lighting, and we're going to try a different angle, and we're going to do all that. And I want to do all these things because if I can reach somebody different because of the adjustments I'm making and because of the way that I'm showing up, that's what it leads to. And I'm telling you, I live a life where things continually come together and opportunities are constantly created because I'm willing to show up when I don't want to. I'm willing to silence the inner critic long enough to actually get started with imperfect action, knowing that someone somewhere is going to see this, hear this, watch this, and then go do something with it. And what happens when that starts to multiply? I decide to show up, choose imperfect action, and just go. Someone sees it, consumes it. They say, you know what? I get it. I see it. I'm going to do the same thing. And that chain reaction starts. How different would the world look if that happened at scale? That means a lot of people were doing it. Like as many people were becoming entrepreneurs and quitting their job and working from home and becoming a speaker and all of the above. The amount of that many content creators, there's more content out there. Excuse me, there's more content creators. No, excuse me. There's more content than there is content creators out there, which means there's not an even pendulum there, to give you an idea. That's the example there that I'm using as far as at scale. So I'm hoping this video wakes you up in an area that you didn't know you needed to be woken up in. That's the goal. Shake things up a little bit. I've been referred to as a human defibrillator. Well, I guess all defibrillators are human defibrillators, but in human form, if you will. Perfectionism, it doesn't exist. It's subjective. Imperfect action, it does exist. And it tends to lead to phenomenal opportunities and get you to places that you didn't even imagine or think you were going to end up in because you just decided to show up. Questions, thoughts, ideas, concerns about this episode or any episodes on this show, please comment below if you're watching the live recording of the podcast episode. Shoot me a DM if you're listening to the actual podcast. I'm at Podcast Suck. That's 2 S's, plural, Podcast Suck on Instagram, under Sebastian Rusk on Facebook and LinkedIn. Also, Podcast Suck over on Twitter. So shoot me a DM, feedback, ideas, questions. What about this? What about that? I'm here to help. And I actually don't just say that I'm here to help and send me a message or comment below or shoot me a DM and not respond. I actually respond. Imagine that. I hope that triggers someone out there that may be watching this that says, hit me up, and someone does and you don't respond. The audacity of you. Really. Please write a book on how to be that cool, that you don't have to respond back to people that are actually asking for your help. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We'll talk to you next time.